The Orioles are on the clock. Let's do a quick little live reaction pod when they make their pick. The Orioles' first round pick at number 2022, or number 22, I should say, in the 2024 MLB Draft.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Sunday, July 14th, 2024. This is a special, quick, live edition of the Locked On Orioles podcast. As always, I am your host, Connor Newcomb, and we are here to live react to the Baltimore Orioles' first-round selection in the 2024 MLB Draft. They are at pick number 22 as Kalen Culpepper, the shortstop from Kansas State, was just selected 21st overall by the Minnesota Twins. Unfortunately, Culpepper was someone I was very heavy on the Orioles selecting with their first pick. Unfortunately, they are down at number 22, but there are a whole lot of good players out there. Number one being Vance Honeycutt, who is the outfielder out of the University of North Carolina, who has some questions with his hit tool, but he has some tremendous, I would say, tremendous upside at the plate and in the field. That could make him one of the best players in this draft. Thank you so much for everyone for joining in. Again, this is not going to be a usual 30-minute long episode. This will be about 10 minutes or so, depending how long it takes for the Orioles pick to come across. And then we will chat a little bit about that pick. If you are looking for more draft content this week, make sure to subscribe to the Locked On Orioles podcast on YouTube. Also subscribe wherever you listen, whether it be Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I just had an episode earlier on Sunday recapping the series against the Yankees this weekend. Make sure to go and check that out. But I'll also have draft coverage. I'll be back with a full episode Monday night. We'll be going a deeper dive into all three picks from the Orioles on Sunday, and then all of their picks on rounds 3 through 10 in the draft, which is happening on Monday afternoon. Might even go live on Monday evening to talk about those picks. And then Tuesday evening, we'll talk about the rest of the picks in the draft. Again, a 20-round draft. We'll get to rounds 11 through 20. The plan is, though, if you are a subscriber specifically to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel, and you have to be a subscriber, there will be some exclusive content coming out this week and over the next couple of weeks where I'm going to try, we'll see how well it goes, but at least for the first 5 rounds or so, to do an interview with someone, a media member, a broadcaster, a coach, someone who knows these players well that the Orioles do select, get some one-on-one chats with them to really go in depth on these Orioles 2024 draft picks. It's something I used to do on the main feed of the podcast back when the Orioles were really bad, and there was much more time to not talk about the major league team and talk about the draft. Not as much time now. We will certainly focus on these first 2 or 3 picks very heavily. But again, the Orioles are going to come away with 21 new players in this draft and probably a few more with undrafted free agent signings. So it will be definitely cool to dive in to some of these players. Now, we know, as with every other sports draft, there are probably the picks being spoiled on Twitter. I am at least mostly off Twitter as well, but I am going to, at least with the ESPN broadcast on right below me, just kind of react to where the Orioles go there. A quick reminder about the MLB Draft, and I see a lot of comments about what the Orioles should do. Remember, the MLB Draft does not work really anything like the two more popular drafts in major American sports, which is the NFL Draft and the NBA Draft. In the NFL and the NBA, you are drafting for need because those players, those rookies, will help your team the very next season. When the Ravens in the NFL Draft take a wide receiver, or maybe go and take a cornerback, or whomever they draft, that's a player that's going to be on the field playing significant snaps for them in week 1. In the NBA, when the Washington Wizards take Alex Sarr, number 2 overall, he's probably going to be in their starting lineup on opening night of the NBA season. Remember, that is not how it works in the MLB Draft. Even with the best players, there's some guys who are outliers, like Paul Skeens, obviously, but not a lot of guys are Paul Skeens, especially pitchers. For hitters, you're looking at minimum 2 years before you see them in the big leagues. And generally for pitchers, you're looking at minimum 3 years at least before you see them in the bigs. Teams do not draft for need. What you do is you draft the best player available. A lot of teams, including the Orioles, have models that they look at when they go into the draft. A lot of teams like college bats because there's a lot more data on them, a lot more numbers against high-level competition from either 2 or 3 years in college, and there's so much more data available from college baseball. That is why the Orioles, under Mike Elias, have focused on college bats. And everything I've heard in the last couple of weeks, the Orioles are still focused on college bats, looking at this part of the draft. And for me, the highest upside name out there is Vance Honeycutt, and we will kind of keep our eyes open to see if that is the selection. But there are a couple of other guys out there as well. In terms of the college bats who could be interesting, Ryan Waldschmidt is a guy out of Kentucky, an outfielder who has some interesting tools and an interesting story as well. But taking a look at Rob Manfred right now with the sound off, we are waiting for the ESPN banner to go up. And there it is. Vance Honeycutt is the newest Baltimore Oriole, the outfielder, center fielder out of the University of North Carolina. Honeycutt, a very interesting and intriguing pick. And this is the first thing I'll say about Honeycutt. He was definitely being mocked to the Orioles. He was definitely being connected to the Orioles. And let's just start with the biggest question with Vance Honeycutt. The biggest question with Vance Honeycutt is, can he make enough contact at the plate to be a major league hitter? Like, plain and simple. Can he hit the ball with power? Yes. Can he play an amazing center field? Yes. But there are some strikeout issues, no doubt about it, with Vance Honeycutt. And because of that, there are at least some questions that teams have about him with his hit tool. You talk about all the different tools that people can have. The hit tool is really just a fancier way to talk about how well you can make contact with the baseball. And the hit tool is really the one question for Vance Honeycutt. He hit .318 with a .410 on base and a .714 slugging at UNC this year. That is an 1124 OPS on the season. 28 home runs, led North Carolina with 70 RBIs. Now, he walked 36 times. That's pretty good. He struck out 83 times on the season. That is the issue. A 12% walk rate is good. A 28% strikeout rate for Honeycutt was the highest of any of Carolina's regular players, and it wasn't particularly close. Now, he hits the ball insanely hard. He has some awesome exit velocities, and he plays an insane, I will say it again, an insane center field defensively. You want to talk about a guy who at the very least has a very high floor, which means even if his bat never comes around hit tool-wise, he is going to be, and might already be, a major league caliber center fielder. To be honest with you, this pick of Honeycutt reminds me a lot of the Enrique Bradfield Jr. pick that the Orioles took with the 17th overall pick in the first round last year. Why is that? Bradfield could play center field in the big leagues right now and hold his own. Elite speed, elite defense. That's what Honeycutt has. Elite speed, elite defense. He could play and be a defensive replacement and pinch runner in Major League Baseball right now. That is how good the speed and the defense are for Vance Honeycutt. It's a great arm. It's a great glove. He's got amazing range. He can run as well. And he's got pop. Again, the question is, with a 28% strikeout rate in college, if you have a 28% strikeout rate in the big leagues, that is already considered a little bit shaky. That's in college. The stuff he's facing, the talent he's facing, is only going to get better as he gets into pro ball. And that's why there are question marks, at least at this point, with Vance Honeycutt. Now, all in all, I really like this pick, because if anyone is going to take in Honeycutt or a player like him and know that there is one glaring issue with a tool that he has and be able to fix it and have the player development apparatus to fix it, it is going to be Vance Honeycutt. That full stop right there. Now, a lot of the scouts, and this includes the write-up from Joe Doyle at Future Star Series, who we had on the podcast last week to preview the draft. We talked a little bit about Honeycutt in that interview. Basically called it a 30-grade hit tool eventually. Now, that is only 20 to 80 grading scale. 30 grade is not good. That basically means there is a lot of questions about whether or not he'll make enough contact, or if he will just swing and miss way too much to be an impact big leaguer. But again, if he does make contact, he has really, really good exit velocities. He's got really, really good contact rates. He is going to do damage when he gets to pitches. That's just kind of the issue right now for him, is getting to pitches. Breaking balls, as a right-handed hitter, breaking balls down and away certainly gave him trouble against tough righties that he will face, but he was still able to put up stats in his career at UNC, just not exactly the stats he wanted to really before this year because of those strikeout issues. In 2023, he hit .257, slugged .492 with a .418 on base. He actually had a better on base percentage last year. And he had a 409 on base in 2022 with a 296 average and 25 home runs. But again, he struck out 90 times in 2022. Then he cut down on the issue, 51 strikeouts to 49 walks in 23. He lost some power, though, and he lost some batting average. It was really interesting. The strikeouts soared way back up in 2024, but he also had his best power season, and he had his best hitting for average season, and he also still stole 28 bases and played an amazing center field. So it's a really, really interesting profile for Honeycutt, where you could argue that, you know what? He might have really, in 2023, made a super concerted effort to cut down on his strikeouts, and he did. But the issue was he lost power, and he lost hitting for average, and he lost the overall hit tool. And when you put all of his stats together, he was, despite cutting down on the Ks, a worse overall hitter in his sophomore year. So as a junior, he kind of went back to what worked when he was a star freshman for UNC in 2022, and he had his most productive season. But again, that strikeout rate is definitely somewhat concerning for Vance Honeycutt. If you're looking for kind of the track for him, he may go to the FCL, but most likely very quickly he'll be in Delmarva in a couple of weeks. And the goal is he finishes the season in high A Aberdeen. And then really when you're looking at a guy like Honeycutt that's that advanced, he's basically on the exact same track record as Enrique Bradfield, where you want Bradfield to finish in AA Bowie this year. You're looking for Honeycutt to finish in AA Bowie in 2025 as the Orioles work through his hit tool. And then in 2026, that is when, if they can get the hit tool together, you start to think about the big leagues. But really, I would target 2027 for Vance Honeycutt to be a piece in center field for the Orioles. And what this also does is it gives the Orioles a right-handed and left-handed potential successor to Cedric Mullins. Bradfield last year, the lefty. Honeycutt this year, the righty. They make a really good system, even better with Vance Honeycutt. You're going to see a lot of different people who cover prospects have some wide-ranging takes on Vance Honeycutt. And I think is going to be the other really interesting part as we hear and read and see more and more about this Honeycutt pick, is that you're going to see some people who say, yeah, I think the hit tool won't be an issue. He'll be an amazing big leaguer. You'll see people that will say he's only going to be a fifth outfielder in the big leagues. He's only going to be Ryan McKenna because he swings and misses too much. And then you have some people in the middle who say, well, I didn't agree with him, but then when the Orioles drafted him, that is when I started to say, you know what? I think Baltimore can actually make that hit tool what it needs to be and turn him into a player that, listen, he's never going to be a super high contact guy. Like, let's look at this right now. He'll probably never hit 300. He'll probably never hit 290, 280 in the big leagues. But if he can have enough hit tool to hit 250 and get up to 25 home run and 30 stolen base numbers while playing a Gold Glove center field, that is a really, really valuable player to have, even in the middle part of the bottom part of your lineup. That could be a really, really stud big leaguer in the years to come. But I am very intrigued to see what the Orioles can do with swing and miss in his game. But if you think about it, Kobe Mayo, there was a lot of questions about swing and miss in his game. Now it's a little bit different. He was drafted out of high school, not out of college, but there was questions there. There were some questions about, some swing and miss in the game of Kyle Stowers. They got him to the big leagues and he's producing. There was some swing and miss questions about Heston Kjerstad. They've gotten into the big leagues. None of them have questions as big as the swing and miss questions about Vance Honeycutt. Don't get me wrong. And there's a reason why they picked a lot of those guys higher, and Honeycutt, is a pick they get at number 2022. But this is going to be an exciting player. This is going to be a guy who plays the game with some passion out in center field. And just go watch some highlights of what he did in North Carolina's run to Omaha this year in the College World Series. Some of the plays he made, the swings he took in the regionals and the super regionals, I mean, he met the moment every single time and was really fun to watch. So there it is, Vance Honeycutt at pick number 22 for the Orioles, making sure you are liking, commenting, and subscribing to the Locked On Orioles YouTube page. We'll have plenty of exclusive subscriber-only draft content throughout the week, maybe even a little bit of it later tonight when the Orioles do pick at number 32. They've got two more picks, and actually we have a good comment right here. Sample says, so maybe like a Jose Siri type. That is actually a really good comp. I think the Orioles would hope that Honeycutt ends up making a little more contact than Siri, but Jose Siri, amazing defender, amazing runner, crazy power, insane amounts of swing and miss, strikeout rates that push 40%. He could be Jose Siri. If he's Jose Siri, it's a good outcome. That is an everyday, pretty much starting center fielder that I would take if he's Jose Siri. The O's hope he's more, but that's a good comp and a good comment right there. Potentially might come back and do another one of these for pick number 32. O's have 2 more picks today. Number 32 is that PPI pick, prospect promotion incentive, for Gunnar Henderson winning Rookie of the Year. And their second round pick will also be later tonight at number 61. But follow along right here on this channel for any more content covering this Orioles 2024 MLB Draft. Thank you so much for tuning in, and might be back with you shortly as the draft continues.